Hey, I'm Clint Benish, and I want to welcome you to the Worship Leader Toolbox podcast, where our mission is to equip you with ideas and resources to faithfully serve in your local church. Please take a few moments to subscribe to this podcast and give it a 5-star rating and review. But for now, let's join Tim Price as we jump in today.
Hello, I'm so glad that you're here today on the Worship Leader Toolbox podcast. My name is Tim Price, and today I want to talk a little bit about how attending a conference will help you in these 5 critical areas. Of course, conferences may look a little different here in the pandemic year of 2020, but they are still important for ministry leaders. Being a part of an equipping event helps a church staff member or team leader stay fresh, stay sharp, stay connected, stay faithful, and stay grounded. Before we get to these 5 things, I want to remind you as a worship leader or a worship team member that we have the Awakening Conference coming up next week. This all-digital conference is designed to help equip and encourage and just train with some practical thoughts worship leaders and worship teams. Volunteer, paid, part-time, whatever status you are, you can glean great information from this event. All registration fees have been waived for the 2020 Awakening Worship Conference, and it is going to be all virtual. But we would love to have you register, and we would love to have you send it to your team members to register. Though there are a couple live components that will happen during the day, most of the event is on demand with interaction as the 3 days goes on. It's October 13th, 14th, and 15th, and the Awakening Worship Conference is had a lot of people register already, but we would love to make sure that you know about it and can be a part of it as well. So let's just take a minute to think about how conferences, in person or digital to most of the same degrees, are great opportunities to work on these 5 things. Number 1, conferences help you stay fresh. Just going somewhere and seeing how they do it can be motivating. Often I will wind up taking pictures of places that we're at, or I'll take note of how a church sets up their flow or their hospitality or their worship space, ideas for how they decorate or how they encourage good traffic flow and good connection points. And I'll take those ideas back, and they'll be a part of how we arrange our ministry in whatever ways that can work in our context. I've been a part recently of the National Volunteer Training Day, the Orange Conference, and Sing 2020, a global conference. And most of these have been virtual. And it's been great to see how other leaders even do that, how they set up their ministries. We get a glimpse of different worship stages, different worship songs, and different worship styles. We get a glimpse of how people present and the good and bad points of ways to connect with people, either in person or through the screen. Often we stay fresh at a conference because there's a new twist on the basics. Of course, we understand the rhythms and the usefulness for time management and discipline in life, but it's not until we, meet up at a conference and hear somebody speak about something that triggers our thought to say, yeah, we've got to get back on that bandwagon. Just knowing something can be done is inspiring and keeps you fresh. When you see that a church has accomplished something that maybe you thought was almost impossible, you realize, yeah, we can go home and we can do that. And I'll tell you another thing that keeps us fresh is the expectation for God to work in our heart in a different way because we're sitting there absorbing instead of leading. And too often for ministry leaders, every position we find ourselves in, we are in charge of accomplishing something, speaking, saying something, pulling people together, training, equipping, leading, praying. And when you attend a conference, unless you are the one there leading the conference, but even then you have opportunity, we need to sit back and expect that God is going to work in our hearts and keep us fresh in ministry. That's number 1. Number 2 is to stay sharp. Attending a conference helps us stay sharp. Most conferences have an emphasis on content, and we have an opportunity to hear breakouts and presenters and speakers, and we are able to take from that what will help us in our ministry. Second thing is that we have the opportunity to be around like-minded people. Iron sharpens iron. And as we gather with others, people that we know and people that we've just met and people that we'll probably never meet, we are invited through those interactions and relationships to stay sharp in our ministries. Conferences offer good questions and reflection time. And those things are invaluable for figuring out the best ways to accomplish ministry back home. We stay sharp because we begin to evaluate, and we evaluate our ministry and the good points and the bad points and what we need to fix and what we need to do, what we need to improve and work on. Of course, we don't want to get stuck in comparison, and that's always a trap for ministry leaders, and that's a joy killer, and it causes us to be discontented with our lives and our ministry. But evaluating is good, and so we take time to evaluate when we are at a conference. The last thing about staying sharp is that as you return home, you find yourself telling people what you learned. You glean the 5 or 6 most important things, and you share those with others. And as you share, and as you're teaching others what you have learned, that helps cement the ideas and the thoughts, and it begins to become part of who you are. And so you begin to stay sharp in that way.
Let me just take a few moments to share how we distribute all of our online music on Spotify, YouTube, Amazon, and Apple. It's all in TuneCore.com. Upload your songs, pay one flat rate, and they do all the work. It's awesome. Get 50% off your first upload at worshipleadertoolbox.com/TuneCore. That's worshipleadertoolbox.com/TuneCore.
The next thing is that we attend a conference and we wind up staying connected. It's good to invite others from your church to participate with you. I love it when we get an opportunity to go down to the New Room Conference, and several from our church staff and volunteer teams are part of that. The van ride is a joy. The hanging out together, eating meals, and attending the conference together is always a memory builder and a connection point. But even in a digital realm, it's great to connect with your people, to invite them to register for this conference, and then join together in whatever way you can encourage them and learn together. When we attended the Orange Conference as a church staff, we participated in the Q&A times and all the general sessions. But for the most part, our team texted back and forth different things we were learning and what we had seen and experienced through that conference. You stay connected to the people you are joining in with. But you also get to reconnect with members of your tribe who aren't in your geographical area. So being connected to friends and other folks that you've met over the years, it often happens at a conference. And sometimes that's about the only time it happens during the year. The next thing is you connect with new folks, speakers, presenters, partners in ministry, people who are putting out display tables, just all the different ways that you can learn from somebody and you connect with them. One of my stories that I remember connecting with was, in addition to these other examples of, meeting up with old friends and people from our church, in a practical way, at one of the worship conferences, Worship Together, I think it was, I just passed by one of the tables and wound up getting a free ear test so that they could put something in your ear and computerize the molding and the fitting for in-ear monitors. And to that point, I had only used regular in-ear monitors, just whatever you buy, from Amazon. But for whatever reason, I did that test and I pulled the trigger and got in-ear monitors and molded to my ear. And I've been using them now for 2 or 3 years. And the awesome thing is that it really has made a difference. It's helped in terms of staying, not getting hoarse as easy, and just a whole bunch of things that it's been great. And I have worn those things every Wednesday and Sunday and tons of weekends and summers as I have served in worship ministry. So connections are important in that way.
Hey, worship leaders and team members. This is Clint.
And I'm Tim.
And we want to invite you to the Awakening Worship Conference for 2020.
Yep, and this event is going to be all digital this year, and we've waived the registration fees to remove any barrier to your attending.
The conference will take place for 3 days, October 13th, 14th, and 15th, and here is what you can expect. First, 30-minute live opening each morning that will include live worship, a brief devotion, some practical thoughts, intros of the leaders who are going to be speaking, and also great giveaways. Other than those 30 minutes each day, the presentations and sessions will all be video on demand with some discussion and interaction through Facebook.
You do have to be in person at 9 in the morning Central Time to receive giveaways, But even if you're not available during the workday, you're still encouraged to register and attend and have access to the conference content.
Registration is easy, and I'll tell you 3 ways to do that. First one is go to worshipleadertoolbox.com. The second one is go to harvestconferences.org, or you can always remember to search the hashtag Awakening2020 to get to the right place.
All right, the fourth of 5. Attending a conference helps you to stay faithful. And so this one might be a little bit different. It helps us stay faithful for the long haul whenever we are surrounded by others in ministry and we are meeting with the Lord on a regular basis, pulling away from the regular routine. A break from the routine in some ways almost feels like a vacation, even if you're booked up going to seminars all day long. But there's something about the different sort of posture and the different atmosphere and the different environment. I always come away renewed and refreshed. And what that does is it inspires me to keep going. And so for more than 20 years, I've had a role in a church and a role in a ministry, both working together, 2 part-time things that kind of make one big, happy, fun job. And through the rhythm of being gone and being back home and then being gone again and being back home, I just don't think you can hardly overdo meeting together with others for a day or 2 of conferencing and connecting. And so it allows us, through God's grace and mercy, to stay faithful in ministry for the long haul. And then the final one is that it keeps us grounded. The large gatherings often are big production and amazing components. And so sometimes it might make us feel like we are not able to do that kind of ministry. But it also, in an encouraging way, makes us realize that we are not alone out there. There are hundreds or thousands of others who are involved in serving like we are in kingdom work. But here's one thing about the big production or the amazing components. As you go back home, you all of a sudden realize that as creative as that was and as cool as that conference was and all the things that you learned and all the different ways that you connected, here's one thing that we all have in common. We are serving our church back home. In our congregation and in our communities, our church doesn't have the opportunity to have all those leaders personally and geographically there in person with them. In a sense, they are stuck with us in a good way and us with them. So for now, we're working together to be a light in our corner of the world for Christ. It's a good feeling to know that we're away for a conference and then we come back and jump back into the hard and fun work of serving together. And this keeping us grounded is really what is a great benefit for the conference. As we are there, we're talking to others about the church that we serve, and we lift up those encouraging words and sometimes even make it seem better than it is because we just love our people and love the opportunity and love the potential, and we see God at work. And so we surround ourselves in those type of things. And then we go home and we are refreshed and ready, sharp, and on kind of a new trajectory of saying we are going to be faithful together. So those 5 things are important, and you need those, and conferences help you get them to stay fresh, to stay sharp, to stay connected, to stay faithful, and to stay grounded. And so I want to invite you again. If you are a worship leader or if you are a volunteer worship team member, whether you're a paid worship leader or part-time or whatever the case is, we would love to invite you to the Awakening Worship Conference happening October 13th through the 15th of 2020. And of course, we'll do it again other dates, but for this year, it is all digital, all virtual, and all the registration fees are waived. And we've got a whole bunch of great speakers who are going to be presenting and talking about various topics of basics of worship leading and bivocational ministry and why we sing and how you recruit and onboard people and how you build a culture of recruiting and how you follow Jesus together and just a whole bunch of great topics, vocals for worship, bass for worship. And so I would just love to invite you to register and attend. There will be a link in the show notes. It's a free registration, but you do need to register in order to get the conference link. And after you do that, we'll meet together live for 30 minutes each morning. And that will be from 9 to 9:30 a.m. Central Time. And from there, the videos are on demand. And we'll also be available to talk through the Facebook community group or just through the comments in the blog. But we're going to just sharpen each other, and we're going to grow together as we connect at the Awakening Worship Conference. One last thought about the conferences. It doesn't just apply to worship ministry. These 5 crucial areas are good for any ministry leader. So to stay fresh and sharp and connected and faithful and grounded, look for places where you can gather with like-minded people and learn something. And those things are going to be an investment. They're going to cost a little bit of time and energy. They're going to cost some, days on your calendar. It's going to cost some registration money. But as you do that, it is going to make an impact for your church. Do all you can to figure out a way to be a part of conferences. Thanks again for listening to the Worship Leader Toolbox podcast. We're so thankful to have you as part of our community and part of our group. And we want to encourage you to share this podcast and to rate it and to review it so that others can find it more easily. And want to thank you in advance for just partnering with us in that way. Want to encourage worship leaders, let you know that we're praying for you, and would love to invite you to the website, worshipleadertoolbox.com, for other blog posts and other connection, and also to the Worship Leader Toolbox community group on Facebook, because that's another great way to ask questions and get ideas and stay connected to people. So once again, thanks for listening, and we will see you next time.